and welcome yourselves to a new episode of Death Church Radio, Death Church Radio Podcast, and the Sean C. Stuckey Show on Facebook, BitChute, YouTube, Trovo, Vimeo, pretty much anything at this point. I'm streaming on many different services, but currently right now it is just YouTube, then to be later streamed on everything else. So for today's episode, this is episode 31 of Death Church Radio. I'm going to be talking about, once again, sticking with what I wanted to do that we did yesterday, I'm going to be doing today. Let's go over some news stories. We got 6 new ones for you. Once again, like I said yesterday, it's a pretty slow news day. Not that much is going on. Today is Sunday, so you should have been in church. Not really a way of really getting around that. It's just something I was thinking about in church this morning because I almost didn't get up and my wife woke me up. And I thought to myself, oh, thank God, because I can go to church, then we can eat, have a Starbucks, egg sandwich breakfast with a small coffee. And if you people don't know what I like, I get the same thing that I've been getting. I've been getting the same cup of coffee every time I get coffee from anywhere, and this has been going on since, I believe, this had to have been 2010, 2011. I remember specifically it was like 2013 is when I started getting this specific coffee over and over and over again. I got it this morning before I went to church. They do serve coffee at the church, but the coffee's kind of gross, so I don't like to get it. But it's like, what does Pastor Sean, what church does he go to? Well, I'll tell you what, I don't. I go to a charismatic church, but not charismatic in the way of how you think it is. Also, really quick, I was thinking about this earlier when I was at church for doing the show. From now on, there will be an MA 21 rating on the show. So if you want to listen to Death Church Radio Podcast, it is now asked of the listener, being that this is a podcast, once I get everything ready and rolling in my new place to set up the studio, I got to set up a camera, set up the microphone. I pretty much have to, set up a green screen. I do have a couple of ideas as to what the new studio is going to look like when I start filming myself doing this. It's now going to be a mature audience rating for this show. This new show, I would prefer it if you were 21 or over. So by the time you are allowed to buy alcohol legally in the United States of America, I would highly appreciate it if, for the viewers listening to the show, you would be over the age of 21 to listen to this. Please do not listen to this if you are under that age. Wait until you're 21 to go listen to something else. Okay. Anyways, so for the coffee that I like to get, it's the same thing. Wherever I go, it's the same thing. It is a tall or a large, I don't know what the Spanish language, like when you go into Starbucks. I've been going to Starbucks pretty much since they opened up. When I was I don't really remember drinking any coffee in high school. I don't think I did. I remember drinking coffee after that. I remember that in 2007. When I was 19, or 18, I do remember that's when I started drinking iced coffee from the 7-Eleven down the street for my first job. I do remember that and getting those glass Starbucks drinks, but forget about it now. You can just go ahead and completely forget about that because with those Starbucks, the glass drinks has mocha, vanilla, and then there's like a third, I don't know, the sea salt flavor or whatever. With those, like at my job, I remember walking in just because around here in the state of Arizona, it has gone up by 30% that I talked about in yesterday's show, the price of everything. And Starbucks is included in this. When I went to the vending machine at my job, it said there when I clicked on the buttons on the side, $4.25 for one of those little coffees. I bought it anyways, but I thought to myself, you know what? This is just going to have to be a once a week kind of thing because that's way too much money. That is not Why would I spend almost $5 on a small coffee? No thanks. No thank you. So if I'm going to spend that kind of money, uh, I'd rather just go to an actual coffee house, like I don't know, like Raging Sage or something like that. I'd rather just go to, you know, what's my favorite place? What's my favorite coffee place? Oh, Dutch Bros. That's my favorite one. I get the same thing, a large. I mean, just because my heart rhythm has been off again. I've been having heart problems once again, which is completely my fault. But the thing is that uh, for my because of my offbeat heart rhythm, I've been getting smalls lately. But what I'd like to get is a large white mocha iced with whipped cream and caramel drizzle with one shot of espresso in it. So I think it already comes with one shot, so I get two shots, and then that's it. Usually don't order food normally. Uh, that I think of now. Nor I mean I got the bacon gouda whatever sandwich. I mean one time I tried to eat the McDonald's breakfast, but like their actual breakfast, like actual breakfast food instead of just the whatever they call the sandwiches. That's something stack. I don't know, sausage patty and McGriddle or I don't know what you call it, but for that one, the I remember getting it when I was in Tucson, and when I got it, this was right after my pet died, and I remember the food tasted completely disgusting. I could not stomach it. I had to literally force it down, and it was. I remember that being pretty expensive. Um, don't really understand the thing with the women and the men there that work at McDonald's places. Dressing like they're flying an airplane. They dress like pilots. I don't understand that, or I don't know. It's just these things in the future that somebody here. Hold on just a second. I think someone's trying to get in the door. Okay, never mind. Um, don't know who that was. Oh, it sounded like someone was like pulling the knob on the door. So I thought it was my wife for a second, and I walked over. That's nope. So I guess I'll just ignore that. Anyways, living in a new place, it's for the most part, it's actually been great. I feel incredibly blessed to live where I'm at. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with Dead Church Radio, the news show. What we got on the first docket is, and like I said, another slow news day, but we got to talk about something, okay? So, also, for the other half of the show, for the Super Bible, we are going, excuse me, sorry. Drinking caffeinated water. I'm drinking a bubbly. Anyways, it's going to be, so we left off yesterday at 1 Samuel chapter 6, verse 19, so we're going to start from there. It's only about a paragraph up to verse 21 before it's chapter 7, and we are going to go all the way to chapter 9, verse 14 for today's episode. So 4 pages, and if you guys, this is your first time, I do a verse-by-verse breakdown, and then I added my 2 cents with different things that we read throughout the story, okay? In church today, we went over the book of Colossians, which is kind of weird because since I've been going to this church for a year now, I mean, I actually have gone to the church off and on since 2019. The specific charismatic one that's not leftist, it is Bible-centered, Bible-oriented. It's just you can pretty much dress however you want. You can wear hats inside the church, and if you want to throw flags or get on the ground, start screaming and stuff, they allow you to do that. Just don't be too distracting. But anyways, it's Colossians because the last year they've been in the book of John for like a year straight. So anyways, to first start this off, we got Twitter. So I guess the people at Twitter are going to re-examine the bid that they may now take Elon's. I guess the bid that he said that he wanted to. Well, so from what I'm understanding, and I mean, I didn't really do too much research on this just because everybody I know, like yesterday, the people that I watch off and on, this is the big thing that is being talked about. I mean, I even looked at, I was even watching Drama Alert yesterday, and that was like one of the main stories, other than Sam Hyde training that guy from Epic Mealtime for a boxing match and spraying him in the face with pepper spray. But yeah, the main thing that's talked about in the news right now is Elon trying to buy Twitter. And really, I mean, even that guy Jack Dorsey put out a tweet saying that he regrets the fact that he has very much so gone against free speech and what it states in the Constitution, that we all have freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and like, you know, things like that. That he highly he feels really bad about the fact that that he censors so many people's speech, I guess. So when it comes to people like that, I don't know if like he was being genuine about that. I don't know who this guy is. But anyways, Elon was trying to buy for like 56.40 a share to basically throw it all on the open market and then tank the value that Twitter has. Okay. Okay. So there's not really much to say about it. It's just from what it says on the news today for the 24th is that they're going to re-examine the offer for Elon Musk to buy. I don't know if he's buying 30 percent, 20 something percent or 30% of Twitter, or is he buying 100% of Twitter? Because I heard that he wants to fire basically all the staff members that have caused certain sections in certain parts of the world, or most specifically certain parts in America, pertaining to elections, that basically they were generating, like what Facebook was doing, generating election fraud. I mean, it's pretty much, I mean, whether the fact if you like Trump or not, that's pretty much what happened. Like, if you just do, you got to do some research into this. Like, you got to go a couple hours of research, which is what I did from the things that I was able to find on Gab and some other sources, some other independent sources about how many ballots were, you know, sent out, how many of them got trashed or got changed in a system or things like that, or like when you were in a voting booth, other than, because there's like differences in which ones you go to. I'm not sure about the other states, but there's some here where you can write on a paper ballot, which is what I did, or you can go in this thing that's covered in a machine, like you're in front of a machine and the machine and you are covered up by a blanket, and then you can tap the screen to say which one you want to vote for. But I mean, that one video came out a couple years ago that made its rounds on Twitter of some guy who was pressing for one candidate and the other one was lighting up, stating that the one he was trying to vote for, the machine wouldn't let him do it. If you have the eye to see the veil behind the scenes, this is all Freemasonry tricks. Every single president is a warlock, and these people are already predetermined as to who is going to be the president and who's not. These people are already predetermined, except with Trump. I just wasn't exactly sure on that. I'm still not, because I'm pretty sure he's a Freemason, but the things he does confuses me. So it's like he's a sleeper cell for Christians or something. I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe God's convicting him, just like he convicted that guy who was the vocalist of that band from that crappy show with Simon Cowell and those other judges on the X Factor. He put out that 6-hour or 6.5-hour video about exposing everybody that is in the entertainment, politics, bankers, and whatnot that are all Freemasons. They are the Illuminati thing. So I mean, I'm pretty sure Elon Musk is a Freemason himself. Not sure. This is just speculation. Like, these are, the thing I'm saying on here is alleged. I personally don't know, but that's just, I mean, that's just my opinion on this. But yeah, they are now re-examining the bid, and Elon Musk, the deal that he placed on the table for, I think it was like $48 billion, and he said that could be in cash, which I can't even fathom that amount of money. I mean, I had in my hands, I would say $1,200, like all in 50s and 20s and stuff, and that was a lot of money. Okay, I had to do that for the move when I was working up to 16 hours a day at my old-ish job. I mean, I still work there, but not really. Like, I work there only once a week for 4 hours now because I'm starting my new job tonight, actually, at another security job. But anyways, so that's what's going on with that. Next is the 56% spike in homeless deaths in Democratic cities. I'm not sure if I actually have that one up. What is this? I don't. Okay, so let's see. What's the next one then? All right, yeah, that one. Okay, so that's what's going on in 56% spike in homeless deaths in Democratic cities for the next part. I'm sorry, I'm already getting lightheaded. I have like the sharp pain next to my left eye. Where the eyebrow, it's like the end of the eyebrow was at. I guess where you can feel the end of the socket. I have like a sharp pain right there. All right. But this is kind of like, I don't really know why this is news. It's kind of like, did you see this coming? Because I certainly saw it coming. 56%. It's like, yeah, well, duh. I remember when I was first dating my wife, and when the first time she met my parents, we went into a Barnes and Noble. And we went in the Barnes and Noble. We went over. My dad needed to go use. No, I need to go use the bathroom. And so I went in there, and then my dad was like behind me, and he was going to use the bathroom after me. And then, because I remember me and him discussing it when we got out, or when I waited for him and my wife, my girlfriend at the time. Excuse me. And you see in there that there was a drop box that was next to the men's bathroom, and a Barnes and Noble that where you could put a dirty syringe. And I was thinking to myself, what the hell is that doing in here? This is a bookstore. Well, put really big air quotes around bookstore, Barnes and Noble. Like, I mean, yeah, that's a joke. Anyways, so it's like Starbucks is a quote unquote coffee house. Yeah, okay. Anyways, coffee actually wasn't really that bad this morning. Actually, okay, there is someone in front of my door, but they're talking to someone. Okay, that's the only bad thing about this new place I live at in this apartment complex is that my room that I have with my wife here is next to the front door of the whole building. So I hear people going in and out. I don't know why someone would randomly be grabbing the freaking doorknob because it sounded like the doorknob was shaking. I don't know. There's a lot of junkies that live around here. Someone could have just randomly walked in. It's very possible. Like that's actually very likely. So there was a dirty syringe container that was inside the Barnes and Noble, and I thought, why is this here? And me and my dad discussed it. I don't know, man. It's just I work with these people. Oh, it's Democratic cities. I don't know, the whole thing of like, oh, Democrat, Republican, like that was one of the main reasons I stopped watching Ben Shapiro because I used to watch him on a daily basis. Him, Andrew Klavan, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh. I used to just be in the Daily Wire for like a while. As I was watching like Rebel Media back when Gavin McInnes was on it, and then the whole, the tour with Milo. But I'm not gonna say that out loud. But anyways, So I mean, this is an MA show. This is a 21 and over show. Anyways, so you get into okay. So I personally work with these people. Okay, but it's when you work at a hospital. This is corporate. Okay, this is corporate America. You have to be under the assumption that someone could snitch and rat on you. So that's why I keep my opinions to myself. I'm not, if there's, especially when you work in the medical field, I'd say 85% of all departments are females. And you know how catty and gossipy women are. So most women are like that. It's like in the book of Proverbs. You have to watch your tongue. Okay. Don't be giving what you genuinely feel about things out in public when you're at work. Just keep it to yourself. It doesn't matter who thinks what at what time, or even if you see someone that's just talking about some stupid ideology that they believe that lives, rent free inside their heads, and it's stupid, just let them think what they think, and you think what you think. So even if it's just NPC-like behavior, you can just let them think that. Whatever it is of whatever subject. Don't bring that up at work. You need to keep those things private. Just bring it up with the very few people that you can trust at work that is not going to blather and gossip to other people, and then all of a sudden you're being handed a slip that says you got 2 weeks to go find another job. Just keep that stuff to yourself. But I work with these people, mental cases, people that are detoxing, drug addicts. They have criminal mindsets, and you have to treat them accordingly. A lot of them are lying to you when you do like activity therapy and go out and then you watch them paint, or you hang out with them in a room doing meditation, or going to the library inside the hospital, or like, I don't know, like going to the sports court or swimming, like whatever it is. Most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them are lying to you when they say whatever it is they're talking about. I'm going to stay clean this time. Most of the time, that's not what I'm sure they want to be, but most of these people are too far gone in how much these hard drugs have destroyed their brains, how much doing LSD and things like that. Like, if you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, just like, this is a gray area, but when it comes to strong drugs, LSD, shrooms, whatnot, these things destroy the receptors in your brains. That's what they do. Okay? I'm not saying that they can't be used to heal what PTSD and traumatic events and whatnot. I'm not saying that, because that one thing that what's his name Vsauce did when he went to Peru and they did that 2-day event. I forgot what it's called. When you drink the cup, but it has hallucinogenics in it, and then it makes you sick, and then you see these things, and then you have a transcendental, like, I don't know, like a religious, spiritual experience. I'm not saying that can't be helpful in a therapy setting, but to just do it all the time, like, especially if you're doing meth or heroin, there is no benefits. It's just destroying your brain. So these people are already gone. What does it say? 56%. So of homeless deaths. Yeah, you have to treat them like criminals. They have a criminal mindset. What they understand is pain. You can keep talking to these people. Hey, can we talk about this? Please don't do this. Oh, could you I know you picked up the coffee mug to hit me with it. Could you please put that down? So many of these, I mean, because the people that run my job are, they're liberals. Like, the kid said that he's going to straighten up and fly right if you let him smoke cigarettes on the patio, like things like that. Dude, these things, I've worked at this job for more than a year now. These things do not work. However, what does work is pain. That is universal. That's like turning on UFC and everybody, like, you don't need to learn Spanish or whatever, German or whatever, or sit there and learn Portuguese to understand what's going on. You see it like it's even like pro wrestling. Oh, it looks like a fight. UFC, oh, they're fighting. You just understand. Pain is a great indicator in mental health that okay, I'm going to stop doing this because if I go and attack another patient or I attack a nurse or I attack a tech, a BHC tech or whatever, or if my doctor comes in and I just start slapping him around, oh, security's going to come in. So someone like me, oh, they're going to throw me to the ground and then we're going to fight. They're going to drag me into the room to get shots to be sedated. And every time you do this, this will keep happening. So then they stop doing it. That's the only thing these people understand. You can't just keep giving freedoms to people. Like especially someone who's mentally damaged, you can't, that lives with PTSD and trauma and whatever else, and being addicted to drugs. All this is gonna like, oh, well, I see him on the street, like here's $20. It's like, dude, you may be the reason why the person OD'd that day because you gave them the $20. That's on you. That's your fault now. Just just do not interact with them. Do you need help? If you want help, here are your choices. You can go to the psych wards, or you can go get a job and work a job and save up money for you to get an apartment. If you can't afford an apartment because everything's too expensive, then you need to take the Greyhound to go to another place. I don't know, somewhere else in the U.S. where it's much, much easier to get a job and the housing market is really low. So when you go to apply to get an apartment or whatever, then it's much easier to get because it's going to be cheaper. But like when it comes to small menial jobs, those are easy to get. And then this is what you're going to do when you're going to grind. You get to pick one of these or you go to prison. You go to jail. There is no other, you can't just be sitting on the side of the street begging for money. That doesn't work. So, oh, a spike in deaths. Like, oh, who saw that coming? It's just, oh, well, let's just let them live in freedom, and they just, we love them, and we just want the best for them. But if that's just their life path, that's the energy they want to put out. Is, if they just want to sit there and smoke crack all day, we need to be loving about that. It's just, go ahead. These people, when it comes to the government and democratic, basically local governments run by Democrats, you play stupid games, you're going to win stupid prizes, and this is the stupid prize you get. People died because of people like them, so that's what you get, and they're going to have to answer to Christ for that when they die. So, I don't know, maybe they just go to hell. Anyways, let's continue. Man dies in shooting in Phoenix, and this one actually just happened 5 hours ago. I got it up here. Man dies in shooting in North Phoenix, and this is on Thunderbird Road. A man died Friday afternoon after being shot near the intersection of 35th Avenue on Thunderbird in Phoenix. They responded to the area that was around 2 p.m. For reports of shots being fired and found a 34-year-old man who had been shot and died at the scene. Police yet have not identified the man, but during the investigation, the police were led to 19-year-old Joseph Macias. Macias was arrested and booked into jail. Police have recommended charges, including first-degree premeditated murder and tampering with physical evidence. And you can just see by the picture of this man that you can see clearly he's possessed. So, not much else to say on that. Phoenix is a very, very dark city. I'm not saying all of it because Scottsdale's pretty nice, but Phoenix, downtown, where the Suns play at, it's a very dark area. There is a lot of homelessness. There is a lot of assaults. There is a lot of gun-related violence, fist fights. I mean, you would, if someone said, hey, Pastor Sean, if we go out today and go drive around for a couple of hours in Phoenix, and I'll tell you what, I'll give you $1 if we see somebody at some point, not even driving 20 minutes out, someone outside on a street corner literally smoking crack out in the open. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to win that $1. Okay? All right, so there's really nothing else. All right, so next part. Okay. Let's take a pause for the water. My wife's large water bottle with the Gab sticker on it and the Bitcoin sticker. Anyways, so next one. This is Ukrainian tennis star demands Russian players and Belarusian players, tennis players, they have to be subjected to an ideological purity test before they are allowed to compete in the international tournaments. I got this from Summit News. So basically, if you're Russian and you want to play tennis, again, it's not really news. It's just something stupid. Alina Svitolina, Svitolina, that's her last name. You can obviously tell she's a sleeper. You have to pass a purity test, quote unquote, which essentially states it's a quiz stating that, do you stand with Ukraine? Do you stand with Ukrainian's government? Do you stand with Zelensky? Oh, you don't, or you don't have an opinion, you don't get to play tennis. Again, I mean, this is really stupid. It really doesn't matter because anybody can do anything right now when it comes to sports or, I mean, I've heard this in like stand-up comedy and things like that just because of the whole, well, feminism is taking over. It's like, well, no, it really hasn't, because if you love it, you're going to do it anyways. And if you keep getting 86, like if a tennis player says, I have nothing to do with this, I don't care about the war, I don't support Russia, I don't support Ukraine, just leave me alone, let me do what I'm doing. Because right now, 2022, and what's been happening since what I've noticed this since 2000, like this, the beginnings of these things have started since 2012. I've noticed. So 2022, it's like you have to be on the side of something. Well, why? Why do I have to pick something that doesn't, like? I've never been to Ukraine. I know what it looks like through pictures and videos. I've never been to Russia. What does this war have to do with me as an American citizen? I don't know. It's just, oh, you have to pass a purity test in order to play tennis. It's like, no, I'm not doing this. That's okay, you're banned. You can't play here for whatever. I don't know if it's Wimbledon or I don't know anything about tennis. I mean, if you guys want to turn on the Nintendo 64 and we play Mario Tennis, that's different. I'm really good at that. But it's like, who cares? I mean, all you have to do is you just make your own company. Oh, this is this tennis. Oh, there's tennis courts everywhere. Just pick a tennis court and just hand out tickets and flyers, and it's going to be this tournament, and then just go to a shop and buy a trophy. Like, these things aren't hard. Like, oh, if I don't pass this purity test, and if I don't walk out there like wearing whatever, I don't know if tennis players wear tennis uniforms, I don't know. Like the shirt, instead of like it's saying Reebok or something stupid on it like Adidas or whatever, on the back of the uniform it's the Ukrainian flag and it says, I stand with Ukraine. It's like, no, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Just go open up your own league, open up your own tournament, say, hey, every 3 months, we're going to have this tournament at this park. We're going to rent it for this time. It's public, so we'll just use it for this time. Hand out flyers, get an audience, and then we'll hire people that know how to judge tennis matches. There you go. It's super easy to get past this. Just say, if someone tries to come up to you with a purity test, if you are a professional athlete, just walk off. You don't need to do it. It's dumb. You don't need to have an opinion just because every other NPC out there on all those different social platforms, like on TikTok or whatever, Facebook, like, oh, it says on there, like, I stand with Ukraine. Like I was talking about yesterday when COVID first happened and everyone had to have that Susan G. Komen-esque ribbon, but it was like yellow that wrapped around your picture and said, oh, stay inside. I'm indoctrinated. Everyone become doctrinated with me. Let's all do this together, guys. No, we have abstract, independent thought on this show, okay? Not doing that. Start your own league. If someone's in bowling, well, you can't bowl for our league because you don't stand with Ukraine. Okay, I'll just make my own league. Like, who cares? Just name it something random. Oh, it's, I don't know, Firebird sub sandwiches bowling league. Okay, there you go. Bam. Okay, I'll put this in. You have to make the, you guys get the point. Just make your own business. All right, next. 9,000 body grave discovered in Marsupial. What's this called? Mariupol, Ukraine. So, all right, pulling it up here. Yeah, possible, not is possible. Possible mass grave with up to 9,000 bodies discovered near Mariupol, Ukraine. I can't pronounce that. So the journalist here is, I can't even pronounce that. Anugrath Kumar. So sounds like a Muslim black metal band. Anyways, satellite imagery has revealed what looks like to be a mass grave outside the port city of Mariupol in eastern Ukraine, which might be 20 times larger than any other mass grave that was discovered earlier this month in Brusha and could contain as many as 9,000 bodies, according to officials from Mariupol, which was witnessed the worst fighting since Russia's invasion last month. Okay, and look at that NPR. Oh, they were reporting on it too. So NPR, yeah, you really know, you can really trust the source on that one when it comes to the NPR. Ugh. So, I mean, it's sad, but look, these are how these things behave. It's what you don't know behind the scenes, and I'm not going to go too in depth with this because this is just alleged. It's like what I was saying yesterday about President Zelensky. This guy looks suspiciously like that guy that I cannot stand. Not saying it's anything. Just like how Chester Bennington from Linkin Park suspiciously looked like John Podesta. Not saying anything. This is not actual news. This is not an actual fact. I'm just giving you my opinions. It's just when it comes to the guy who's basically one of the guys running the Freemasons. What's his name? George Soros. That's his name. He looks like Zelensky. Like, it looks like it could be his dad or his grandfather. I mean, let's look up a picture of Alexander Soros. Let's look him up. This guy, he looks, without the glasses on, he actually looks pretty similar to, he's 36 years old. Yeah, Alexander Soros actually looks pretty similar to President Zelensky. So they could be cousins. I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm giving you guys my opinion here. Look, dude, Frazzle Drip, aka Pizzagate, has come up in the news again. And now Zelensky is, like I said in yesterday's episode, allegedly, quote unquote, alleged, not actual, but alleged, has been connected to this and connected to the Clintons and connected to that whole child sex ring that's been happening through the Wayfair company. Remember how they were selling boxes for like $38,000 for a table? And then if you looked at the serial number and whatnot, it actually connected to kids that were on missing persons lists here in America. I mean, and also that sex trafficked, whole little incident that got brought up 8 years ago with Haiti, where orphanages from Haiti were being brought here, but the kids and these people, you have no idea what happened to them or where they went when they somehow flew from here to it was Washington D.C. or something like that. Like, I'm not saying any of this is fact. I'm just saying it's my opinion, just from things I've researched. 9,000 bodied grave discovered in in Ukraine. Okay, it is a tragedy. It is. It is a travesty. War is not natural, but this is how superpowers behave. And look, it's like also I was saying yesterday, God, he dictates who wins and who loses wars. So I'm not saying that this is good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, but this happened possibly that there's this many people dead because of, I'm sure, planes dropping bombs or like tanks rolling through or whatever the situation is. It is a tragedy. It's a travesty. I'm not saying it's not. It's just you need to keep your eyes open as to what is the bigger picture here. So, and the bigger picture here is Putin and how the mainstream media and a lot of these people, I mean, I got this from the christianpost.com. So a lot of these things that you think are good are not good. Like that's of people feeding you information of just going on Google, type in the word news. This is what you're being fed. From these, it's like we're supposed to think a certain way. Okay? When the people that are, I'm sure they run every country. I'm sure every country, every continent is run by the Freemasons. I'm like almost positive about this. I'm not 100%. I'm like 80%. I'm sure Putin is in the Freemasons too. Like I'm sure this is all like a work. This is all like kayfabe. I'm sure. Like, what is the actual reason that Putin is declaring war against Ukraine, other than the fact that they just don't get along? Like, you got to do some heavy research and look at these people that are on the left-hand path. So, that's just my thing about it. Really nothing much to talk about. We're just going to end it with this before we get into the Bible study. That the Suns play the Pelicans tonight in Game 4 for the no traveling zone. Hope they win. Not going to pray about it, but I'll be watching it at my new job. Okay, even though at my new job, it said in the notes that will be in the post orders when I get there that you can't have your phone out while you're at the job when you're in the guardhouse. So seems like the time's really going to drag, but it's okay. I'll hide the phone. So I did at my last, not this job, but the job before that, I hid the phone. So it's not a big deal. So anyways, so that's that. That is the news for today. Let's go ahead and get into the Bible study. All right. Oh. All right. Closed up the computer there. Don't need to do any more research. Sorry about that, guys. I mean, if the show's a little boring from a worldview perspective, it's just because nothing really is going on in the news right now. So, there's nothing really. I mean, the Elon Musk thing is like the biggest story right now, other than the Russo-Ukrainian war that's still waging with 20,000 now casualties. It's, but it's like it's like I said yesterday, but there's 30 wars going on right now with half of them being secret. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, oh, we're all supposed to think it's such a tragedy. It's okay, but what about, all the women that are like getting raped in Ghana and getting raped in Africa? It's like, what about them? What about Christian martyrs that live in the, like in different places of like the Middle East and whatnot? I understand that a lot of that stuff is on the, like Boko Haram, for example, or Haram. Like basically these guerrilla factions, I guess you would say, live at the edges. So a lot of them, it's at the edges of like Saudi Arabia and these areas where it's difficult to be a Christian, but I mean, for the most part, you still have to obey the rules and whatnot. I mean, in China and whatnot, like all the Christian martyrs and the martyrs of whatever other political parties that have been mass murdered in, in China, like the, like what's his name? That that guy that I follow on Twitter. I don't remember his name. He was at a basketball game. He was wearing a shirt that said, "Think about those people that have just been massacred in China, it's like by the millions." Um, the Urkers or something. I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. If it comes up, I'll bring it up on the show. So it's just there are so many problems, like fentanyl overdoses left and right, because it's basically now super heroin. I deal with that at my job on a weekly basis. It's like there's so much tragedy all over the place, but the news and then other people that are attracted to the news are like, "Whoa, but you're supposed to feel bad about this." It's like, why? I don't understand. Let me if God's not convicting me and I don't and I just genuinely don't care, then why should I care? Like, oh, because you told me to? Yeah, okay. It's like when it's the same thing like with those boomers and these other people about, well, why don't you have your mask on like when you walk into a Fry's or a Safeway or something like that? Why don't you have your mask on? It's like, dude, it's none of your business. It's focus on yourself. Do what you're doing. Like, don't worry about what I'm doing. Like, mind your business. Anyways, so let's continue. All right, so first, all right, so here's the Super Bible. So instead of Super Chat, it's chapter 6, verse 19. Once again, we are going to chapter 9, verse 14. Let me just take a large swig of water. The air is dry, and my throat is dry. Okay. And he struck some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they looked upon the ark of the Lord. He struck 70 men of them, and the people mourned because the Lord had struck the people with a great blow. Then the men of Beth Shemesh said, "Who was able to stand before the Lord, this holy God? And to whom shall he go up away from us?" So they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to you." Chapter 7. And the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of the Lord and brought it to the house of Abimadad on the hill, Abinadab, and they consecrated his son Eliezer to have charge of the ark of the Lord. Excuse me, sorry. Some bubbly water. From the day that the ark was lodged at Kiriath Jearim, a long time passed, some 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. Samuel judges Israel, verse 3. And Samuel said to all the house of Israel, "If you are returning to the Lord with all of your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your heart to the Lord and serve him only. And he will deliver you out of the land of the Philistines." So the people of Israel put away the Baals and the Ashtaroth, and they served the Lord only. So getting rid of all idols, which is what was talked about in church today, of don't make Jesus an idol that you have on your idol shelf inside of your heart. He goes first. Okay. Then Samuel said, "Gather all Israel at Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you." So they gathered at Mizpah and drew water and poured it out before the Lord and fasted on that day and said, "There we have sinned against the Lord." And Samuel judged the people of Israel at Mizpah. Now when the Philistines heard that the people of Israel had gathered at Mizpah, the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel. And when the people of Israel heard of it, they were afraid of the Philistines. And the people of Israel said to Samuel, "Do not cease to cry out to the Lord our God for us, that he may save us from the land of the Philistines." So Samuel took a nursing lamb and offered it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. And Samuel cried out to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord answered him. As Samuel was offered up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to attack Israel. But the Lord thundered with a mighty sound that day against the Philistines and threw them into confusion. And they were defeated before Israel. And the men of Israel went out from Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and struck them as far as below Beth-kar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen and called its name Ebenezer. For he said, "Till now the Lord has helped us." So the Philistines were subdued and did not again enter the territory of Israel. And the land of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. The cities cried that the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel from Ekron to Gath. And Israel delivered their territory from the hand of the Philistines. There were peace also before Israel and the Amorites. Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life, and he went on a circuit year by year to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah. So these are towns or cities. I don't know if there were cities back then. There were large towns. And he judged Israel in all these places. Then he would return to Ramah, from his home was there, and there also he judged Israel. And he built there an altar to the Lord. Pause. Okay. Chapter 8, Israel demanded a king. So when Samuel became old, he made his sons judge over Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second, Abijah, Abijah. I think it's Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations." All right, so we're going to go down to verse 14 of chapter 9. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." And Samuel prayed to the Lord. Excuse me. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Obey the voice of the people and all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, according to all the deeds that they have done for the day I brought them out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So they are also doing to you. Now then, obey their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them." Samuel's warning against kings. Verse 10 of chapter 8. So Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king for him. He said, "These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots and to be his horsemen and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his servants. He will take the tenth of your grain and of the vineyards and give it to the officers and to his servants. He will take your male servants and female servants and the best of your young men and your donkeys and put them to his work. He will take a tenth of your flock, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord will not answer you in that day." Pause. Oh, okay. Continuing. The Lord grants Israel's request. But the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. And they said, "No, but there shall be a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles." And when Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the ears of the Lord. He repeated them in the ears of the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Obey their voice and make them a king." Samuel then said to the men of Israel, "Go every man to his city." Chapter 9. Saul chosen to be a king. And we all, if you've read the Bible before and know the story, we all know what happens with Saul. Let's continue. Chapter 9, verse 1. Now there was a man of Benjamin, whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, son of Zeror, or Zeror, Zeror, son of Bechorath, son of I can't pronounce this, Aphiah, Aphiah, a Benjaminite, or a Benjaminite, a man of wealth. And he had a son who was named Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. From his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the people. Now, the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. So Kish said to Saul his son, "Take one of the young men with you and arise. Go and look for the donkeys." And he passed through the hill country of Ephraim. Of Ephraim, and passed through the land of Shalishas, but they did not find them. And they passed through the land of Shalim, but they were not there. Then they passed through the land of Benjamin, but did not find the donkeys. When they came to the land of Zuph, Z-U-P-H, Saul said to his servant, who was with him, "Come, let us go back, lest my father cease to care about the donkeys and become anxious about us." But he said to him, "Behold, there is a man of God in this city, and he is a man who is held in honor. All that he says comes true, so now let us go there. Perhaps he can tell us the way we should go." Then Saul said to his servants, "But if we go, what can we bring the man? For the bread in our sacks is gone, and there is no present to bring to the man of God. What do we do?" The servant answered Saul again, "Here, I have with me a quarter of a shekel of silver, and I will give it to the man of God to tell us our way." Formerly in Israel, when a man went to inquire of God, he said, "Come, let us go to the seer," S-E-E-R, for today's prophet was formerly called a seer. Okay. And Saul said to his servants, "Well said, come, let us go." So they went to the city where the man of God was. And they went up to the hill. They went up the hill to the city. They met young women coming out to draw water and said to them, "Is the seer here?" They answered, "He is. Behold, he is just ahead of you. Hurry. He has come just now to the city because the people have a sacrifice today on the high place. As soon as you enter the city, you will find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, since he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. Now go up, for you will meet him immediately." So they went up to the city, and they were entering the city. They saw Samuel coming out toward them on his way up to the high place. And we're going to stop right there. All right, so let's do the verse by verse breakdown. Let's just do a pause really quick. Okay, so starting in verse 19. Okay. All right. So the 5 cities named in verse 17, so what we read yesterday, which include all the cities of the Philistines belonging to the 5 lords, since each of the 5 Philistine cities would have unwalled villages associated with it. Note, Ashdod and its territory, which is in chapter 5, verse 6. A similar phrase refers to a political unit in Assyrian annals, Annals, in chapter 27, verse 5 through 6. Ziklag is a country town belonging to a royal city of Gath. Okay, this list may have been put into the box with the gold items. So we're talking about those items to stop the curses of God that we talked about on yesterday's show. All right, starting with verse 19 now. The Hebrew expression looked up indicates staring and perhaps gloating. This irreverence explains why God struck some of the men. The puzzling Hebrew text, 70 men, 50,000 men, may possibly mean 70 men, i.e., 5 people out of every 1,000 or every clan. If this is the correct meaning, then the population of the city would have been 14,000 people or 14 clans. Just a second. Okay. Verse 20. The people of Beth Shemesh sound like the people of Ashdod, okay, which is in verses 7 through 8 of chapter 5. Now, Kiriath Jearim was about 10 miles farther up from the Sorek Valley toward Jerusalem. It was a strategic location situated on a hill at a juncture of the boundaries of Judah, Dan, and Benjamin. So the areas with 3 of those being of the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay. Eleazar is also the name of Aaron's son. The name Eleazar was probably common in the Levitical families. In fact, it may be that Eleazar was descended from Aaron, and that was why the people of Beth Shemesh asked Kiriath Jearim to take the ark. Okay. Judgeship of Samuel, verses 2 to 17. Okay. Nothing has been heard of Samuel for 20 years, since chapter 4, verse 1. Excuse me. But then he calls the people to repent and put aside idolatry. And the people respond, Samuel is not a military figure, but through his prayer and worship the Lord works, and Israel is at peace with its neighbors. He is clearly the leader of all Israel. Samuel is also a judge in the more modern sense of the word. Returning, verse 4. Here is the act of repentance, i.e., a change of direction back to the Lord. Next part, Samuel gives 3 commands. Number 1, turn away from idolatry. Number 2, direct your heart unto the Lord. Number 3, serve him alone. And also see Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 15. Foreign gods and the Ashtaroth refers to the totality of idols. The Baals and the Ashtaroth have the same meaning. So Baal is the name of a powerful demiurge that is a demon god, just like we talked about yesterday with Dagon. Baal, Baal. I believe that's the owl god. That's a powerful deity that is still around and being worshipped today in 2022. Okay. Next part, verse 6. Mizpah is probably the modern Tel and Natsbeth, about 7 miles north of Jerusalem, near an important north-south road. It was the place of assembly of all of Israel, as in Judges chapter 20, where Saul was proclaimed king. It was on Samuel's circuit for judging. Next part, I will pray to the Lord for you. Samuel was known as an intercessor. Next part, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord and fasted. Like fasting, pouring out the water was an act of self-denial as part of Israel's confession. Next part, we have sinned against the Lord. The people's action was also an act of offering with similarities to the whole burnt offering. It was given completely to the Lord. All right, next part, verse 9 of chapter 7. Nursing lamb. An animal could be sacrificed once it was 8 days old. A basic purpose for the whole burnt offering was to make an atonement, which is talked about in Leviticus chapter 1, verse 4. Next part, verse 10, the term of confusion occurs first in Exodus chapter 14, where the Lord threw the Egyptian army into quote-unquote panic, where the Lord's lightning routes, which is the same word of hamam, against his enemies, or against the enemy. So basically, confusion, panic, same thing. Next part, verse 13, did not again enter the territory of Israel. The victory is here described as a decisive turning point. Although Philistine garrisons appeared in chapter 10, perhaps this refers only to a temporary condition, such as during the days of Samuel. Okay? So, Israel having victory. Okay, next part. From Ekron to Gath, or Gath. Ekron and Gath were the easternmost cities of the Philistine Pentatopolis. This verse probably means that the cities and territories that had come under the control of those two ruling cities were freed from their control. The Amorites, broadly speaking, were the pre-Israelite Canaanites. Thus, Israel was not bothered by enemies from inside or from outside. Okay? Verse 15, Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. This is a summary of Samuel's activities as judge and his hometown of Ramah. He visited the cities of Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, which are all in or around the district of the Benjaminite clans. Okay. All right, next part, Bethel, and this is a big part. Bethel was one of the most important sacred sites, being associated with patriarchs. The ark was there at one time, Judges chapter 20, Joshua chapter 18. Joshua lists it as a Benjamite city, but during most of history, it was a part of Ephraim. It was in Bethel as well as in Dan, that Jeroboam established a sanctuary for worshiping a golden calf as a rival to Jerusalem. The modern site is Beatin, which was 10 miles north of Jerusalem, at the intersection of two major highways, the Mountain Ridge Road and the main road leading from Jericho to the coastal plain. The site of Gilgal had not yet been identified. It was the place of the east border of Jericho, which Joshua and the Israelites camped after crossing the Jordan River. This ancient city was a place of worship and sacrifice in the Benjaminite district. Gilgal was important in the kingship of Saul. He was ordered to go there and wait on God after his private anointing. There the people made him king, and there his perpetual kingship was rejected and finally negated. Later in the 8th century, Amos and Hosea denounced Gilgal with Bethel as an active but illegitimate place of worship. Thus, the narrator summarizes Samuel's era. Israel was secure and stable both externally and internally under the judgeship of Samuel. For the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines, and there was peace between Israelites and the Amorites. Samuel's annual visits from his hometown of Ramah gave the people confidence and trust in God and in Samuel's leadership. In the next episode, however, the people of Israel senselessly request a new institution or kingship rather than a new judge, despite Samuel's opposition, because he told them that he did not want to do that, but the people kept demanding it, that they have a king. Okay. So, chapter 8, verses 1 through 22, transition to a monarchy. Chapter 8 is a turning point in Old Testament history, marking the transition from judgmentship to kingship. The people want to change. Up until now, they had depended on the Lord to raise judges to lead them as needed. But now they want a monarchy, like all the nations. Verse 5, we just read that. Why did they want a king? Of course, Samuel's sons were causing problems, but instead of rejecting high hereditary judges and demanding that Samuel's sons be removed, they asked for a hereditary kingship. Probably they were feeling the threat of the Philistines and Amorites, but the phase, like all the nations, seems to be a key. Rather than following God's way for them, they preferred to follow the ways of the world around them. It was ultimately a rejection of the kingship of God. So basically, it was due to fear of the nemesis around Israel. So they all demanded, hey, if we have a king, then we can defend ourselves instead of just trusting God. The whole thing is just surrounded by repentance of the Old Testament and how they used to do things. Okay, so continuing verse 1. He made his sons judges. Samuel himself may have contributed to the problem by appointing his sons as judges. There had not been hereditary judges before. Gideon had rejected the idea. Beersheba was an extreme south of Israel in traditional descriptions. It appeared in stories of the patriarchs, which is in Genesis, and Amos denounced it together with Bethel and Gilgal. A fortress had been discovered at Beersheba that belonged to a period of the judges. Its length was about 164 feet, and it is surrounded by a double fortification wall. It was destroyed in the second half of the 11th century. The remains indicate that Beersheba was an important administrative center at its time. Pause. Okay, a lot of water today. Turned aside after gain, took bribes and perverted justice. When leaders use their office for self-enrichment and as a result distort their decisions, they betray the fundamental purpose of judges and are a danger in all societies. Such practices are denounced over and over again in the Bible, and this is in several books, of self-aggrandizement and making yourself rich off wicked reasons. All right, verse 5, appoints for us a king like all the nations. Samuel had appointed judges and elders, recognizing his authority, asked for a king to judge, can also carry the nuance to govern. They want to exchange their unique glory as the people of the incomparable God who had brought them out of Egypt and was even now protecting them for status in the world in order to be like all the nations. The law had given permission but not requirement to appoint a king. Next part, verse 6, the thing displeased Samuel. The thing was evil in Samuel's eyes. It was more than just a personal sense of rejection. Okay. Verses 9 through 18 of chapter 8. Solemnly warn them is a legal expression that implies giving someone full knowledge of an action. Next part, the ways of a king. The word translates ways. Mishpat, judgment, decision, rule, justice, custom, appears frequently in Samuel. In chapter 2, verse 13, it refers to the customs or rights of the priest. This shall be the priest's due for the people. But in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 3, Samuel's sons perverted mishpat. In chapter 10, verse 25, Samuel writes the mishpat on the king in the book. Here one might paraphrase it as normal kingly ways. Some of these things were the normal cost of a central standing administration, but others indicate a predictable abuse of power. There is no reason to think this passage comes from a later writer delusion with the Israelite monarchy. Okay. Verse 11, chariots. Chariots had long been known in Canaan as instruments of war. Later, David experimented with them, and Solomon used them. He used them regularly. Having men run before his chariots was a status symbol. Both Absalom and Adonijah had a chariot and horses and horsemen, and 50 runners to run before them. Okay. Next part, verses 12 to 13. The commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties were probably permanent officers over conscripted units. Presumably, military commanders were required due to the demand for a king to fight our battles. To support his army, they needed professionals to make weapons, provide food, and manufacture at least some comforts. Next part, perfumers and cookers and bakers. One of the perfumers in Nehemiah chapter 3, verse 8, if you want to look that up. Okay. So now chapter 8, verses 14 and 15, the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards goes beyond what is needed for the administration of the government and predicts the corrupting influence of the king's power. Rather than serving the people without seeking self-entitlement, the king would use his power to take the best for himself and those around him. Servants refers to the high-ranking officials, as can be seen by seals that have been found inscribed with servant of King X, for example, as in chapter 22, verse 7. Saul would indeed make his servants commanders and give them agricultural properties. Okay. Verse 17, you shall be his slaves. The climax of Samuel's solemn warning. The Israelites and all their possessions are subject to the king's use. Conscripted labor would probably be the most onerous form of his slavery. Verses 19 to 21, we, us, and our appear frequently in the short speech. The king's functions are, number one, to give influence and status, like all the nations. Number two, to judge us, the fundamental functions. Number three, to go out before us and fight our battles, be a war leader. So these were the things that the people were asking for when they want a king. Make them a king. The Lord acquiesces to the people's demands, even though it means that they have rejected him. By raising up David's dynasty, God will bring out of their errant desire. So he's still giving them what they want, even though they are straight up rejecting God. The story of Saul, the first king over Israel, rises from obscurity and starts out well, but proves himself unsuited to the role because he will not listen obediently to the word of God that comes through Samuel. Pause. Okay. Saul made king. The section starts with an ordinary family engaged in ordinary activities, but it is soon clear that the Lord is working through these events. Here the story centers on Saul, who was told by Samuel that the Lord has chosen him to be the king to save his people. Saul is anointed, and the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him soon after Saul is publicly chosen by Lot. When Jabesh Gilead is threatened, Saul shows his leadership and saves the city. With this, he is fully accepted as king, and there is a formal coronation ceremony at Gilgal. Next part, Saul's meeting with Samuel. God uses circumstances to bring Saul to Samuel, and he informs Saul of his plan to anoint Samuel of his plan to anoint Saul. Next part, chapter 9, verse 1. The scene suddenly switches from Ramah to a seemingly unrelated story, that of a young man looking for some donkeys who have just happened to come to a certain city on a certain day. Handsome young man, next part. Saul seems to be the ideal person, with excellent potential, particularly as a leader whom others would admire and follow. His physical appearance helps Saul to make a good impression on the people. For his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the other people. This probably means that the heads of most people reached only to his shoulders, most likely. Next part, verse 3, one of the young men. This could also mean the first of the servants or the head servants. The Hebrew, or a young man, does not necessarily refer to someone who was young. Saul's steward was Naar, who had 15 sons and 20 servants. Okay. Next part, verses 4 and 5. The text states that Saul and his servants went through the hill country of Ephraim, and then gives the names of these three places in Ephraim when they did not find the donkeys. The land of Salishash, the land of Shalim, and the land of Benjamin, and then states that they came to the land of Zuph, apparently the land of Samuel's ancestor, Zuph, in the hill country of Ephraim. Just as Saul was about to give up, God intervenes through the words of Saul's servant, and through the fact that the servant just happened to have some silver, it was customary to take presents when seeking the help of a seer. Gifts were an integral part of social dealings in the ancient world. Okay, verse 9, inquire. Inquire is a general verb used of legitimate inquiries of the Lord, either through a prophet or by lots, though it could also refer to inquiring of pagan gods. Seer, prophet, and man of God are used almost indistinguishably in the Old Testament. So, man of God, seer, and prophet pretty much is all the same definition. Verse 12, Samuel was just ahead of Saul, apparently returning to Ramah from his circuit. Because there was a sacrifice today, again, God's guidance is emphasized. Though later high places, even though where the Lord was worshipped, were considered places for apostasy. Worshipping the Lord at the high places was considered legitimate before the time of the temple. Okay, which is also in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 2 and 4. And last part, they saw Samuel coming out toward them on his way up to the high places, or the high place. The full name of Samuel's city, Ramathaim, means two hills. Presumably, the city was on one hill and the high place was on the other part of the other hill. Okay, thank you guys for listening. Tomorrow, we're going to do chapter 10, chapter 11, and end on chapter 12 for the next news show. So thank you for listening, and God bless.